Na kesi ya IEBC, mambo yako yakoje? Tusikize.
Disability, and also the petitioners proceeds to seek for an order of certiorari to quash both the list of nominees to the IEBC selection panel and any resultant actions taken by the respondents. In response to this petition, the first respondent filed grounds of opposition dated 29th October 2024, and the same is summarized as follows: that the petition lacks merit, as it is not practical to achieve complete regional or ethnic balance in the nomination of members to the IEBC selection panel, given that the selection process involves the election of appointees. He submits that the petitioner has not produced sufficient evidence to support his allegations on lack of inclusiveness as required under Section 108 of the Evidence Act. And therefore, the first respondent submits that since the membership of the commission is limited to 9 members, it is impractical to represent all ethnic groups in Kenya on the IEBC selection panel. And lastly, it is the respondent's contention that the petitioner has impugned the composition of the selection panel without first challenging its constitutionality or offering any alternative selection process. On its part, the second respondent also opposed the petition through a replying affidavit sworn on 6th November 2024 by Jeremiah Nyenyenye, the Clerk of Senate, Secretary of the Parliamentary Service Commission. By consent of the parties, the court directed that the petition be disposed of by way of written submissions, and the record will show that all parties filed their respective submissions with the petitioner filing his submissions dated 19th November 2024, while the respondent submissions are dated 22nd November 2024, and the first respondent submission are dated 22nd November 2024, while the second respondent submissions are dated 2nd November 2024. I have read through these submissions in consideration of the arguments that have been advanced by the parties in respect of this petition, and the same have been analyzed, and I'll proceed to read my findings. So, having carefully evaluated the petition, the parties' submissions, the petition, the responses by the respondents herein, and the respective submissions alongside cited case law by the parties, this court finds the following issues arising for determination. Firstly, is whether the list of nominees to the IEBC selection panel violates the principles of inclusiveness and disability representation as required by Article 10 and Articles 10 and 54 sub-Article 2 of the Constitution 2010. And secondly, whether the allegation that the minority coalition party's nomination process lacked transparency and competitiveness. And thirdly, what reliefs, if any, the court should grant. On the first issue of whether the list of nominees to the IEBC selection panel violates the principle of inclusiveness and persons of disability, the representation of persons of disability, it is imperative that the court considers what each separate provision entails and its applicability. Article 10 of the Constitution requires that all state organs, officers, and persons apply the national values and principles of governance, such as inclusiveness, equity, social justice, and protection of the marginalized, whenever they apply or interpret the Constitution. or enact or interpret laws or implement public policy decisions. However, it is now settled in our jurisprudence that the standard is not one of absolute representation of every ethnic or regional group, but rather a demonstrable effort towards reflecting Kenya's diversity. In the instant case, the petitioner argues that having 4 nominees from 2 ethnic communities, being Kamba and Kalenjin, undermines the principle of inclusiveness. It is his contention that such clustering excludes other ethnic groups, thus offending the requirements of Article 10 of the Constitution. However, it is tried law in Kenya that the principle of inclusiveness does not require representation of every single ethnic group in every public body. And this was held in the case of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission versus National Super Alliance, NASA, in brackets, Kenya, and 6 others in 2017, where it was held that consequently in this appeal, we make a firm determination that Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution is justiciable and enforceable, and violation of the article can found a course of action either on its own or in conjunction with other constitutional articles or statutes as appropriate. Therefore, in considering whether the list to be forwarded by second respondent is in contravention of the provisions under Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, its adherence to inclusivity should be assessed in the broader context of whether the appointing bodies had a reasonable margin of discretion and whether any other explicit legal prescriptions were violated. In this case, the IEBC Amendment Act of 2024, under its first schedule, provides that 9 individuals are to be nominated by distinct bodies, which include Parliamentary Service Commission, Political Parties Liaison Committee, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and the Interreligious Council of Kenya. It also provides that each body must carry out a transparent and competitive process without prescribing that each Kenyan community, ethnic group, or region must be represented. It is thus this court's view that the principle of inclusiveness under Article 10, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution in context of selecting nominees to the IEBC selection panel as provided for under the IEBC Amendment Act contemplates a broad diversity, particularly regarding gender and integrity, as opposed to the selection of specific nominees based on their